Hello, I'm Diana Shockley, and today on the Pie Method by Diana, we are going to making another fall favorite pie, a bourbon pecan pie. This pie is one of the top sellers in our pie shop. We only bring it out during the fall and winter months, so it is a highly anticipated pie, which is coming soon to the bake shop, but I can't say anything more. So at the time that we're recording this, fall is just around the corner, so I am very excited to be making the first pecan pie of the season and to be eating the first pecan pie of the season. So to mise en place, you're going to need a half a disc of dough. And so I already made a disc of dough just a little bit earlier today. If you don't have them ready to go, jump over to Pie Dough 101. This is our traditional all butter crust pie dough. And for this recipe, we just need half of it because we're just going to be crimping a bottom shell. We're also going to be making another pie later on with the rest of it. You could also use the scraps for something else. There's lots of videos on our playlist of like extras and fun things you can do with pie dough, so don't throw that away. You can also make two doughs and two pies and double this recipe. So to mise en place, you're going to need a one cup of white granulated sugar, 1 cup of corn syrup, 3 whole large eggs, a cup and a half to 2 cups of pecans, a third cup of melted unsalted butter, half a teaspoon of salt, 3 gently packed tablespoons of brown sugar, and of course, a little bit of bourbon. So for this recipe, we're going to be using 2 tablespoons. You can also just use 1 tablespoon if you don't really want to taste that bourbon. It does bake out, but you get that delicious flavor. If you don't want it to be a bourbon pecan pie and you want it to be a traditional pecan pie, you can also just use 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract instead of the bourbon. So to get started, we are going to roll out our dough. So we're going to shape this guy into a disc itself, and then we're going to roll him out. You know that when we roll out our dough, we always roll out from the center outward, and that is what we're going to do with this guy. So we sprinkle our surface, and then we sprinkle our dough. I'm going to make myself a little room here. And we always roll center outward in each direction. Then I like to flip my dough a couple of times over during the rolling process, and that is so that it doesn't stick to my surface. So I like to roll up, down, left, right, and then in an X, and I always start from the center outward. And then afterwards, I do sprinkle my dough if I think that it needs a little bit more. And then I just focus on the spots that maybe are a little thicker or need me to roll it out a little bit more so that it's nice and round. You want to roll your dough so that it's about an 1/8 inch thick. You don't want it to be too thick. A lot of times people that are kind of new or a little inexperienced and just kind of learning how to make pies, they tend to leave their pie dough pretty thick. And that's one of the things that causes a soggy bottom, is that you're not rolling this out thin enough. And a soggy bottom is just a slightly doughy, slightly underbaked center bottom of your pie. All right, I feel pretty good about how thick this is. So I have a pretty shallow standard 9-inch pie pan here. When you transfer your dough to your pan, you want to just fold it in half. Obviously, you can see that this is a lot more dough than we need. So this dough can actually make a recipe that probably is up to a 10-inch pie. And then you unfold it. So you want to do this very carefully. The good thing about a bottom crust pie is if it tears like this one just kind of tore, it wasn't really careful. Just press it together. Unlike a pie, with a top crust, you don't see where you mended it. So the bottom crust is always very forgiving. So I'm going to trim this to be about an inch overhang, or 3/4 to an inch overhang. So I'm just tearing this off with my hands. You can also use scissors if you'd like, but I like to use as little tools as possible because then I don't have to wash everything. keep everything around. Okay. So just tearing it, you can see that I'm just leaving a little bit, just a little bit of overhang. And that's because I'm going to tuck my dough underneath on the edge, and I need a little bit of dough to be able to do that. Okay, so when I laid the dough on top, you want to just let it fall in. If it's not in all the way, don't press it. Lift it and let the weight of the dough kind of fall into the shape of the pie pan. You don't want to push it in and stretch it, because when you stretch it, that's another thing that can cause your pie dough to shrink when it's baking. So I'm just going to tuck this underneath and just fold this and let it rest on the edge all the way around. This gives us a nice, beautiful um, edge that we can, crimp to have like a really nice fluted edge. It also leaves the edge a little bit thicker so it doesn't burn as easily. Sometimes in some recipes and videos with pie, they just, they'll just trim the dough and it'll just be the same thickness, and it just gets so much direct heat from the top and the bottom. That's why you often have to cover the edges with foil and things like that. With this method, you don't have to do that. So all right, I have a nice, beautiful edge here. Now I'm going to crimp it. I love the look of the fluted edge of a traditional pie with the little ripples on the edge. So I'm just going to pinch my finger and press gently. Whatever you do, I just say like commit to doing whatever you're going to do all the way around. If you want to just use your pinky and make little tiny ones, that's fine too. If you're going to put this straight into the oven right after you assemble it and your dough is still a little soft, it will not hold its shape, and you do risk it falling in a little bit. So the trick to keep it from doing that is to pop this in the freezer for a few minutes, and that's what we're going to do. So I just crimped this guy all the way around. Also, if you're intimidated by the little fluted edge like that, you can use the back of a fork all the way around as well, and that looks beautiful too. Like I said, whatever you do, as long as you commit to doing it all the way around, it will look beautiful. So I'm going to put this in the freezer, and we're just going to let it chill there while we make our filling. So I have, well, let me see these little scraps for a little project later. All right. So I have a little bowl here, and we're just going to mix everything together. So we're going to start with our sugars. So we have, like I said, we have a cup of white granulated sugar. We have our brown sugar. We have our salt. And let's break this guy up first. We're going to give this guy a little whisk. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add the melted butter, because sometimes if the butter is added towards the end, it's really hard to get that to incorporate, and then you have like this cold floating butter on the top. So I like to kind of mix mine up with the sugars first, almost like the creaming method. However, our butter is melted. And then I'm going to put my eggs in. I'm just going to break them up a little bit so I don't just put them straight in. Always crack your eggs in a separate bowl, especially if you're doing it in a mix that you're not going to be straining, and there's no need to strain our batter here. So you don't want to get any eggshells. And even if you think you can catch all your eggshells, I can't tell you how many times I've eaten something that had eggshells in it. All right, so there we go. Put the egg mixture in there, and I'm just going to whisk it. So this order really just ensures that it mixes really well. You could see just how nicely mixed it is. All right. Okay, next I'm going to put my 1 cup of corn syrup. And try to get as much of it as you can. This guy does, is very thick. I always try to clean up as I go. All right, I'm gonna mix this guy up. A whisk works really well with this, by the way. This is not going to incorporate any air, so you don't have to worry about that. A lot of times you want to be careful. You want to use a whisk when you need a whisk, and a spatula when you need a spatula. If it's something really light and airy, like, I don't know, say we're making a cheesecake, you don't want to mix that with the whisk. You'll incorporate air. But this is a very heavy mixture. There will be no air being incorporated into this in just the short amount of time that we're whisking it. Okay. Now the fun part. Mm, I don't drink this kind of stuff, but I have, and this actually, because of my line of work, this actually reminds me of pecan pie. I'm gonna do a tablespoon and a half. I'm not gonna go too crazy. Woo! Woo! Smells like a party. I'll give the rest to my husband. I'm sure he can turn that into something. I drink it. Okay. I'm just gonna gently mix this. The liquid's on top. I don't want it to splash. But this is our beautiful mixture. That is really all there is to it. Um, Even though it just like a bunch of ingredients that get mixed together, like I said, the order really matters. So we are not, by the way, notice that our pecans are still sitting here. We do not mix this mixture in with the pecans. You do not want to do that. So I'm going to grab my pie pan. Okay, it's been chilling for about 10 minutes. There was like a little break in the recording. Ooh, that's nice and firm. Perfect. That's exactly what I want. What you're going to do is you're going to sprinkle your pecans directly into the pie. And then I like my pecans to go up probably about 2/3 of the way up. There's a lot of air gaps around these pecans, so it's not like it's gonna be very dense and full of pecans. And I do that because I think that the ratio of actual pecans to the filling, that ratio really matters. A lot of times when you have a pecan pie from the grocery store, it's like so much of just the batter and the custard, and it's like just a thin layer of pecans. And I think that makes it kind of gross. So I'm just gonna eat that a little later. Okay, so once you put your pecans in, you're gonna pour this mixture all the way over the top. You want to cover all of the pecans. You do not want a pecan that has not gotten any of the batter or the mixture over the top, because if there is a dry pecan, that will burn. It'll turn black in the oven very quickly. So just like all of our other pies, you want to fill it up just to the edge of the pan. So we're going to be like pretty level with the pan, and that's what we want. Okay, so now this is going to go into the oven at 350 degrees, and we're going to let this bake for about 30 minutes. Then I'm going to rotate it. You always want to be in the habit of rotating anything, even if your oven is convection, even if you have a very even oven, it doesn't run hot or anything like that, or doesn't have any hot spots. So this is going in the oven, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back, and our bourbon pecan pie is out of the oven. So this came out of the oven and it baked for about 45 to 50 minutes on this size pie. You'll want to add a little bit more time if yours bakes a little bit, if yours is a little bit bigger, or a little bit deeper. So I did lower the temperature to 335 to 340 degrees, uh, because the top was starting to toast a little bit. So I just put it on a lower rack, because a lot of times the the stronger heat is at the top of an oven. Even in a convection, the heat will be at the top and it'll really toast it up. So I brought it down to the lower shelf, turned down the temperature a little bit, and I did rotate it. So we have like a really beautiful golden crust edge. None of it is burned. And then our pecan top is a little toasted. And you can do the little wiggle test when you have it in the oven if you're unsure. Mine hardly jiggled at all when it was fully baked and fully done. I do notice that there's a tiny bit of caramelization and some teeny tiny little bubbles on the pie when mine are fully baked, and the ones that we bake at the pie shop are baked the same way. Obviously, it's the same recipe, and that's typically how we tell that they're done. Another way to tell if you're done, if you're not totally sure, is you can. I know the pie will be hot, but when it's on the pan, you can push the sides in, and if it doesn't budge or barely budges, you know that your bottom is fully cooked and you don't have a soggy bottom. Again, when you pull your pie out, it will continue to bake just a teeny bit longer on the bottom. So that's something to consider. But let's go ahead and cut into this guy. Look at this delicious pie, this delicious fully set filling. And the good thing about the pecans on top is they literally taste like candied pecans when they're on top. But this is perfectly baked and ready to eat. And you can see that the rest of the pie, it's really easy to cut and serve is another thing you want to consider with your pies to make sure they're fully set and they're easy to slice. So that one was pretty easy to slice. All right, so let's go ahead and give this guy a taste. Wait, before I taste and have my mouth full, I just want to say don't forget to subscribe to our channel and get caught up on all the other recipes that we have. We have at least over 2 dozen recipes of pies that are traditional pies and some not so traditional flavors. And yeah, you don't want to miss out when we have new stuff coming up. Lots of new things are coming up right before the holiday season. So subscribe, and thanks so much for watching. I might not be able to share with this one. Oh, wow. This could be you.